From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Welcome to the show. Today I interview singer, songwriter, and now actor Joel Smallbone. With his brother Luke, he makes up one half of the band For King and Country. They've won 2 Grammy Awards and 3 Dove Awards. He's also an actor and is the lead in a new movie coming out on October 14th called Priceless. His sister is Rebecca St. James, and Joel tells the remarkable story of his family and how they overcame poverty and relocating to America from Australia. We did the interview through our computers while he was in his home in Franklin, Tennessee, through the magic of modern science. Here's part 1 of my interview with Joel Smallbone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a special guest. It is Joel Smallbone from the band For King and Country, and also the actor who's going to be in a movie called Priceless, coming to theaters October 14th. Joel, welcome to the show.
Rick, what a pleasure, man. I feel like, as we discussed off air, we're kindred spirits because you're a songwriter, you're a filmmaker, you're a creative. So it's a true pleasure to be with you today, man. Thanks for making the time.
Well, thank you so much. We're doing this through the miracle of media. Where are you right now?
I'm in my home. I'm actually probably just a hop, skip, and a jump away from you. I'm in Franklin, so just south of Nashville. We have my wife and I have a little cottage down here, and I have the distinct pleasure of actually being at home for a day today. But it's about to, with the film coming out very shortly, where we are right in the throes of a pretty intense traveling schedule.
I notice you have a huge tour coming up, and I want to get to that. But before I do that, just kind of intro. I know you've got this movie called Priceless, but I think the real story is your story. Your story is amazing. Your father was a concert promoter in Australia, and kind of lost his business. Came out here to Nashville with you've got 6 brothers and sisters, sleeping on the floor in some cheap hotels. You want to talk a little bit about your early childhood?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, Rick, and it really sets the stage for really everything. By the grace of God, we've been able to do as a group and as a family to date. And so, Dad was a concert promoter in Australia, so he was on more of the business side of music. And I'm one of 7 kids now. But in the 90s, it was the first time we ever came over to the United States. Dad was offered a job. So he went to Mum and said, hey, I've really felt a prompting over to the United States. He'd been over to Nashville for business trips and such. And what do you think? And she said, you lead, I'll follow. And so he'd lost $250,000 preceding that on a tour that went bad. So we had to sell our house. We didn't have much left in the first place. But with what we had left, we packed 16 suitcases. We sold what little we had left, and we moved halfway around the globe on a job offer straight from Brisbane, Australia to Nashville, Tennessee. And about a month after we got here, he lost his job. So here he is, setting the stage. You got my dad. My mom is 6 or 7 months pregnant with my little sister. There's 6 kids under the age of 14. And he doesn't have an income. Don't have enough money to fly back to Australia. And so in the end, we moved into this house, no car, no furniture, sleeping on beds made out of a lot of the clothes we wore during the day. And I remember it well, man. We really pulled us together. We did everything together. We raked leaves, we mowed lawns. Mum and my elder sister cleaned houses. And everything that we earned went back into the family fund. And we would sit in a circle in the living room most days, and we would just pray. We would do very kind of unreligious, simple prayers for provision and for safety in this unknown land. And really believe we saw pretty miraculous intervention. For instance, the first Thanksgiving we were in the United States. And I should preface by saying we don't have Thanksgiving in Australia because our heritage, you have pilgrims in your heritage. We have prisoners in our heritage. So we don't have this great festive date of Thanksgiving. And we were the first Thanksgiving we were here. We had just anonymously been asked to join this family that sort of opened their doors to whoever wanted to join. And we'd never met them before. We showed up. Can't believe all the food I ate and saw. And at the end of the night, the father of the house learned of our plight, and he went up to Mum and said, "Hey, I believe that God is calling me to give you the keys to my brand new minivan." I mean, we had people anonymously. Someone paid for my little sister to be born in a hospital because we didn't have any insurance. A church found out in this area that we didn't have any furniture in our home, so they one weekend collected a whole bunch of furniture, dumped it on our doorstep. I mean, just miraculous, wonderful things. And it was through that my eldest sister, Rebecca, started traveling. She went by the name Rebecca St. James. She was a gospel artist for many years, and we joked that Dad needed cheap labor. So we looked around. He saw that he has 5 sons, and he put us all to work as the road crew. So you kind of picture the mental picture of like the Australian version of the Von Trapp family. We were all out there with all of our jobs, working together, and it knit us together in a beautiful way. So fast forward really probably a decade or so after that, we'd been back to Australia a few times here and there, and my brother Luke and I got together in his late teens, my early 20s, and we said, "Hey man, what about we'd fallen in love with music through the process, and we'd sort of learned a lot about it through the process. What about giving this a go?" And so really for the last decade, we've been working on this group for King and Country, and it has been a great experiment in a lot of ways, in that it's a family affair. My dad manages us. My brother Josh is a general manager. My brother Daniel is a lighting director. My brother Luke obviously is in the band with me. And then my brother Ben is a filmmaker. And so we've always done music videos together. And that's where, now sitting before you, that's ultimately where the film came from, was our partnership with him.
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio 89.1 FM, 1160 AM, Nashville.
And now back to my interview with singer and actor Joel Smallbone. What an amazing story. Were you ever hungry?
Not many times. Look, we by the grace of God, there was always something on the table. And even if I remember one day, Dad and the eldest kids had to walk about 2 or 3 miles to go to a little convenience store down the road in Brentwood, Tennessee, and walked back, and because we didn't have a vehicle. But I don't remember ever being hungry. We had a lot of ramen noodle soup, or as you call it, ramen noodle soup. We had a lot of Taco Bell, or Taco Bell as you call it. But we were very fortunate in the end to not have that, to not get to the point of starving.
And then the success of your sister, Rebecca St. James, obviously changed things and changed the fortunes for the family. So now you're in this popular band for King and Country. You're on stage in front of thousands of, for lack of a better word, I'll say adoring fans, laser lights and big light show behind you. And are there moments when you stand on that stage in that spotlight with all of the hoopla around you? Are there moments in your mind where you stop and you think and you remember where you came from?
It is interesting. Some of the richest people I know are the people that have had some of the most unfortunate circumstances in life. And I think my family is no exception to that rule. I think there is a deep gratefulness and a deep mission now in all that we do to culturally, share about important messages and, share about this great hope that we have under God. And I've actually had a very polarizing week with regard to performances. I had just 2 nights ago we were in Washington State at the Washington State Fair, and that was the moment for me that you just referenced of like, man, I'm just really grateful and filled up right now, and it's just a real special moment on every level. And then a few nights before that, as often life goes, I had the kind of polarized show of just not being. I left actually very convicted after the show, just not in myself, not feeling as though I had represented well or being the person I should have been or carried the band in the way I should have carried it. And so, yeah, it's like anything, man. It's funny because even in a job of inspiration, as you would well know as a creative, there are days you still have to get on that stage or you have to get in front of that camera and you just don't feel it. And you have to deal with that and reconcile that in your own mind and heart. But I like to think more often than not, I'm in a very grateful position for the opportunities and the ability that we've been given to impact culture through the arts.
Being elevated that way can mess up a guy. It can mess up your brain. You begin to, it's easy to think that you have entitlement, because you go into a venue and everyone is there. Can I get you a Coke? Can I do this for you? Can I, people kind of like part the Red Sea for you. And normal people don't have that happen when they walk into a room. And so it can really mess with a guy's mind. Having your sister already go through that, having Rebecca, having had that, did she help you navigate through some of that?
I think for sure, Rick. It's the thing I realized in watching, because I was really around from the beginning of her career, and then she really sort of wrapped up about 4 years ago. She got married and became a mum, and she's just loving that. And she lives out west in America now. And I think for me, I realized how fleeting it all is and how unstable it all is. And that you want to put any kind of weight of self-worth or of, identity in this, that you might be able to make it through for a few years, but at some point it's going to really fail you. And she was always a great, there are very few people on the face of the earth that I have more respect for than my elder sister. And so she navigated it very well. But I think even in the process, I still got to see the potholes and the minefields and work out how to navigate them a bit better. And I think on this side of it too, now one of the greatest assets we have learned is communication. I mentioned that show last week that was a very hard show for me, just in myself. It was a great performance, if you will, but it was a hard show internally. And one of the things that I've been able to do is just really work through it and walk through it and talk through it with people, and that seems to hold me in good stead. And
we are going to inch our way to the movie. We're getting there. I just want you to know, because I know you really wanted to talk about that, and I do too. And we got plenty of time here. But how do you navigate center stage, spotlight, little girls thinking you're all that, laser show, being so visible in the focus? How do you navigate that yourself in ministry?
First of all, you have to understand the sandbox you're in. And I've studied this a lot even more recently. Music it doesn't matter what you're writing about. Music is a very spiritual thing. It always has been. There's a reason that you could get on a plane right now and you could travel to the most remote tribe that still exists on the face of the planet. And the one thing that they would have is some kind of ceremony or celebration, or some kind of action that would entail rhythm and melody and music. And so I think first you have to recognize the power of it, and I've had to recognize the power of it. Sometimes I've come in contact with the power of it in a hard way, just realizing that whether it's looking at my peers or looking at myself, and the way that if the spirit of it is not right, because the spirit is there, some spirit is always there. If the spirit of it is not right, then it can really impact you in a negative way. On the flip side of that coin, if the spirit of music is sort of this God-centered, God-focused, not self-focused spirit, then I think it actually has a way of really sort of not only blessing you in the process of writing and recording and singing, but a load of other people. And so that. There's one thing that we have aimed to focus on, that is just what is the heartbeat of what we're trying to convey, and connecting that to the Spirit of God, and that holds you in good stead. Look, the thing that you know this, Rick, the thing that most people don't see with music is the red-eye flights and the sacrifice and the way from home and the sleepless. There's no pity-putty here, don't get me wrong, but there are definite sacrifices that will very easily ground you back on the planet. But I think it starts with recognition, just saying music has a great way of bypassing the head and going straight to the heart. And how do we, prayerfully, in community, creatively, how do we sort of wield that power, if you will? One of the great things we do every day, every show day, is we all get together, the crew, the band, which is quite a sizable number of people now, right. And we will kind of have this time of calibration. We will just sit together and we will talk, we will pray. One of us will read a word or share a story, and it connects us to each other. It connects us to God before we kind of step on that platform, which can be, the stage is an amplifier naturally. So it amplifies your talents. It amplifies your flaws. It amplifies your arrogance or your humility. And so you want to make sure that before you step on there, you've hopefully got your ducks in a row.
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio, 89.1 FM, 1160 AM, Nashville.
And now back to my interview with singer and actor Joel Smallbone. So 2 Grammy Awards and 3 Dove Awards later, I had a good talk with Russ Taff a few weeks ago about using the Dove Award for a toilet paper holder, by the way. They make a great toilet paper holder. But I've heard of people doing that. But,
yes.
Your pieces of metal there. Success in the world's eyes. You've done so well with the band, the family. It's just this amazing unit with one in management, one brother in lighting, one brother, now your brother Ben directed this movie, and now you, your dad and Luke executive produced this movie that's now coming out October 14th, called Priceless. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, what an interesting. First of all, there's not a long bridge to cross. To cross from the platform to the set of a film, there are certain things that are very different, but there are a lot of the underlying components are very similar. And so we went to Ben. One of the things that I think because of the family heritage and the journey that we've been on, one of the things that we've been very moved to share about is relationships. Luke and I are still kind of respectively newly married. Luke has 2 little ones, and Mariah and I are yet to start a family. But
your wife is Mariah Peters, also a Christian recording artist.
Yeah, and but one of the things we've been very moved to share about is relationships, and kind of a charge to both Luke and myself, and to men in general, to be chivalrous in how we love, and to love extraordinarily, and to build up a woman, to celebrate a woman's worth. And it's been exciting. We've shared about this probably for 5 years, really since the inception of the band, Rick. And it's been equally exciting as it's been alarming to see the response from people. It's been exciting because it's been a great response. It's been alarming because it's been a great response. And you sort of sit at the back and you go, well, what culturally, why is this? It's a very simple, almost, I dare say, primitive message. Why are we so starving for it? And we've made over the last 4 or 5 years, we've made these necklaces that have an Australian 1-cent coin on them, available at every show that we do. And we've seen about 300 men and women, boys and girls in this country alone grab one of these necklaces and to rally behind this cause. So we took this kind of priceless message and this movement. We went to Ben, our brother, who's a filmmaker, 2 years ago, just about, and we said, there's something here. There's something here that needs to be told. And stories, humanity, and particularly culturally in the modern era, we are impacted by stories. Let's tell this story. And he was like, man, I love it. He had some stories of his own, true stories that we sort of married with this theme. And off we went. I don't think we had any idea, to be honest, Rick, what we were doing. We didn't really know right side up from upside down 2 years ago, and we're still working it out. But I will say this. What's been beautiful is when you have purpose and a point and a focus, and that focus is sort of greater than just self-gratification, it's really remarkable to see the people that show up. And when we started having this conversation with folks in Hollywood, we had really great producers and actors turn their heads towards it. We had Steve Barnett, who's become a very great friend. He's the producer of the Spartan film 300. He was the one that commandeered the rights and produced the Mandy Moore film A Walk to Remember. He's done a host of other great films. He has been an incredible partner in this, producing the film. We had David Koechner from The Office and Anchorman as an actor. We had Jim Perrick from this most recent Suicide Squad. He was Jared Leto's kind of main henchman, and he was in Fury opposite Brad Pitt. And we had Bianca Santos as well from The Duff and from Aoji come on board and really did a great job. Not only that, but this is my third feature to be involved with, so I'm very new to this thing. But they really hoisted me up in the process and encouraged me as an actor to really strive and really kind of unlock a new level of artistry. And it's been no question, it's been the hardest project that we've ever been a part of. And it's been, even to date, even before its release, it's been the most rewarding project, I would argue, in many ways that we've been able to be a part of.
Well, the film name is Priceless. It's going to be in theaters October 14th. And you can get information about the movie, about a theater near you, on pricelessthemovie.com. And, I recommend everyone going there just to see the trailer, just to get some info about it. Also, there's going to be a book coming out September 6th that you wrote with your brother.
Yeah.
And as well as with Nancy Rue, who has written things with your sister Rebecca as well, I noticed.
Yeah.
So we're going to cut our interview short here and pick up part 2 of the interview with Joel Smallbone next week. Next week, Joel talks in detail about his new movie, Priceless. And again, that movie is going to be in theaters October 14th. You can go to pricelessthemovie.com and get more info about that. You can also find out about the band For King and Country by going onto their website, forkingandcountry.com, and that's all spelled out. And find out about their tour. They have a very extensive tour coming up this fall. They're going to be out for quite a while, and the new movie. So we get a lot more of info about the movie and about what's coming up for Joel and the band here coming up later next week. So be sure and check back with us next week for part 2 of my interview with Joel Smallbone. The music you are listening to is from my Scripture Memory record, and I want to give it to you for free. Just go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and click Contact. Altizer is spelled Altizer. Or how about liking my Facebook page, facebook.com/rickaltizershow. I want to thank Paul Winkler, the investor coach, for sponsoring this show, and I want to thank you for listening. So be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.
Turn my eyes